to Wealthy Money TV. Today we're going to be talking about first-time home buying and getting some first-time home buyer tips from the experts. So I met Meyer when I was in the process of buying my first home, and as most first-time home buyers know, the information is not readily available, and the process can be very scary, especially if you're doing it on your own and you don't know what you're doing and it's the first time you deal with this. So I met up with Meyer and he was really phenomenal in guiding me and giving me advice. So welcome, Meyer.
Thank you very much, Vangile.
Meyer, can you please tell us, before I even get started about the questions, but you're doing first-time home buyer events, and I know I'm also part of that whole team, but could you please explain to people what that is and the purpose behind that?
Yes, indeed. I've been involved in property transactions, being a conveyancing attorney for the last 27 years, and we realized that when you go out to buy a house, people do less research in buying a house than they would buy a car. Even when buying a cell phone. If you ask somebody about buying a new cell phone, they'll tell you all about the capacity of a cell phone, the pixels of the camera, and all the functionalities. But if you look at a house, they'll walk into the house and the wife would maybe like the kitchen, the husband would flush the toilet, and then they think they're going to do diligence. With a car, at least you have a AA roadworthy test. But we don't have that with a house. This morning somebody came to me and said that she bought a house and all of a sudden there are water beaters in the floor. And I said, and she's now going crazy because the the beetle inspector people, she says that they didn't do a proper job. So I said to her, go and look at your lead of sale. What type of beetles are covered in that? So she got a second person to come out, and they found that there are indeed borer beetles in the floor, but the deed of sale doesn't cover that type of borer beetles. Now she's got to redo the entire floor. So there are so many things that the average man or woman in the street do not know about putting a property transaction together. We find that estate agents have gone through a very rigorous training system now to become property professionals. But even the deeds of sale that we receive as a conveyancing attorney, we deal with transactions worth 2 million rand, 3 million rand, 300,000 rand. And then the contract is not completely completed. There are open gaps in the document. Later on, if the people have to start getting into litigation with each other, they don't know where to find the people because the contract doesn't provide for an address. It doesn't. It omits the conditions. Is it vacant occupation? Is it occupation subject to existing lease? So there are so many things where we find that we need to educate people how to buy a house. And that's what started our passion to actually starting with workshops and inviting professionals. It was such fun and inviting and identifying all the professionals. And then all of a sudden we see that how they click and dovetail each other in providing content for the workshop. So now we're starting with actual workshops and how to educate a person, how to go about to buy a house. There are so many aspects to that, but we also realize that once you bought the house, that's your first step. Now we've got to educate you how to own your own house. We're going to have to give you a manual, like opening a new PC, putting the PC together and owning that house for the next 20, 50 years.
Yes.
So that is our aim and what drives us to actually start with these workshops.
Wow. I love where the workshops are going, and you'll see me at most of them. I'll be doing the budgeting section and affordability side of things. But Meyer, what are the first steps to someone who's deciding to buy a house? So let's say I decide to buy a house, and literally, you know my story. I decided to buy a house, visualized in my head the house that I wanted. When I found it, I just walked in and said, I'll take it.
Absolutely.
I didn't even do any research. I didn't consult anyone. Meyer was absolutely horrified, but that's how I bought my house. And luckily since then I've explored it. It turns out to be a great investment, but trust me, that's by the grace of the gods. So I would advise that you don't make the same mistake I did. So what are the first steps?
People buy houses, which is most likely the biggest investment they'll ever make, on emotion. And very seldom you actually really sit down and work out what are the starting points we have is to check out your own credit score. We just dealt earlier with the credit score and your affordability, because your credit score ultimately will tell you how strong is your negotiation power. If you go to your bank manager and you stand on your knees and say, please, I want a home loan, but my credit score is not so good and I'm desperate for this home loan, I'll do anything, I'll even accept 2 or 3% more higher than the interest rate, just give me this loan. And you manage to squeeze that out of your bank manager, you end up paying 32% more for your property, only on a 2% higher than prime.
Yes.
But we accept that because by the time that the bank manager or the bank, not the bank manager anymore, it's now the home loans department, grant us the home loan, we are so battered, but we take anything that comes our way. And that we end up, because we're not in a strong position to negotiate, we end up taking 2%, 3% more. Now if you look at a £1 million property, it's 320,000 rand more that you'll pay for your property.
Sure.
If a seller came back to you and said, pay me, after we've done the deal, pay me 320,000 rand more, I've changed my mind, you're going to say, you're the biggest crook that I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
But the bank comes back to you and say, it's not 1 million, it's 1.3, and you say, thank you very much, and you accept that, and you... So but that's the first part. Determine your credit status, because your credit status determines your risk for the bank, and your risk again determines your interest rate. The second one is find out your buying power. The banks normally look at 30% of your income.
Yes.
But if you have too much debt, again, the bank will lower your interest rate.
Yes.
That means at the end of the day that all those things put in a pot and stirred around will kick out your affordability. We started
sorry, I just want to get back to the buying power. You said 30% of your income, so that's what you'll be paying every single month as your bond, that's what the bank is looking
roughly,
for?
that's like a FAMSA.
So that's what you qualify for?
It's actually quite in contrast, with what the National Credit Act prescribes, because the National Credit Act says that your affordability, that's the end of the story, your affordability, that is the gauge. Now if you earn 40,000 rand a month and you live very frugally and you only spend 10,000 rand, you ought to have affordability of 40 less 10, that's 30,000 rand. But the banks are falling back to the old ways of taking a thumbsuck 30% of income. So although the National Credit Act prescribes 1, they go back to 30%. So basically if you look at your income, divided by or multiplied by 30%, and that is what your repayment ought to be.
Wow.
It won't give you more than that. So that is your affordability test that you have. So basically, you're looking at your credit profile, you're looking at your affordability test, and if you obviously have a deposit, that helps you to improve your credit profile again, the risk to the bank, and that can help you to negotiate a lower interest rate.
Wow, that is actually incredible. I think I've learned something with the 30% and the affordability. So, what is the timeline that someone is looking at when thinking of buying a house? Because this was one thing that you had to help calm me down with. I don't know if you remember, but
Yes,
it was the whole timeline issue. Why is it taking so long? I've already given up my apartment. I need to move houses. I may be homeless.
Indeed, we often get it again, that comes back to looking out and making sure that a professional assists you to determine your timeline. Because what happens is that you submit an offer to the seller. The seller then accepts it maybe within 2 or 3 days. Then you get all your paperwork together to go to the bank. Now you've got to run around, get bank statements, proof of income and all that stuff. It goes normally to a bond consultant or it goes directly to the bank. And then they take 10, 14 days, 21 days to get your bond approved. Once that happens, everybody is now very happy because now I've got a bond approval. And the transaction is now regarded as signed and sealed. However, that takes about another 14 days to get that instructions out to the attorney. Now, I have 2 types of attorneys. The one is that will attend to a transfer. That's normally an attorney acting for the seller. And then you have an attorney acting for the bank, and they have to work together. They have to, in that time, they have to prepare your transfer documents. They've got to apply to rates for the municipality for rates and taxes, and they've got to get the bond document signed. Then they have to send it back to the bank again. And the bank has got a lead time of about 6 to 10 days to make sure that all these paperwork are all in place. Then the bond attorney and the transferring attorney work together, and most often there's also a cancellation attorney involved because they've got to attend to the cancellation of the existing bond of the seller. That then all goes to the deeds office, and then the deeds office has got to turnaround time of about 10 to 14 days. Now, 3-4 months ago, you submitted an offer to buy. You didn't know about all these time things that go on. You made an offer, I want to move in the 1st of April, but by the 1st of April...
And they ask you that.
Absolutely.
So you think I'm going to move in on this date, which is what happened to me.
Absolutely.
Naively.
So you didn't anticipate all these delays. Now, we just got a notice this morning that the deeds office will have slower or working hours during Easter time.
Oh, perfect.
We were notified, example, 2 days, 3 days before a Christmas break, that the deeds office will close completely between Christmas and New Year.
Oh, wow.
So all of a sudden, you are faced with another couple of hurdles, which you have to work out the timing involved for the transfer. So all these things come out, work out on a delay. My best advice and a tip is to provide for a specific date. I want to move in on the 1st of a particular date. Because otherwise you negotiate that I'll take occupation and transfer when the transfer goes through. Now that can happen on a Tuesday, or a Wednesday, or a Saturday. Not a Saturday because you can't rest on a Saturday. So now you've got to arrange with your people that will do the removal of your furniture to move in the middle of the week. Quite often at the end of the month it's more expensive to move because they know that there's a bigger demand. So look out for all these things that rather have a specific date when you want and can move in than be notified in a week's time you've got to move in next Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's my recommendation. And those are all part of the education that we bring forward to people that when they buy, to look out for these things and not just be at random and perhaps work on a date of transfer, because that's a random date in the future.
Yes, definitely. Wow, thank you so much, Meyer, for coming through and sharing your hard-earned knowledge with us.
That's my pleasure.
And anyone that's looking to attend the first-time home buyer events, I will be sending out the link on the website. And obviously, if you subscribe to the Wealthy Money newsletter, we also send out the links with the newsletters. In the meantime, please do subscribe to the YouTube videos and stay tuned because we'll be interviewing Meyer and asking more and more of his knowledge. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.